In 1987, hydrologist Daniel Reyes pressed his palm against wet limestone 40 feet underground and felt the rock breathing. Cold air pulsed outward in slow rhythmic bursts, like lungs, from a passage no map listed. 8 sealed rivers hide beneath these ridges tonight, gated, fenced, and unexplained. Reyes timed that airflow for 11 minutes before it stopped completely and never started again. We're heading into 8 forbidden waterways hiding inside Appalachia, the evidence behind them, and why access to each one got cut off. Stay close. Drop your state below. One of these might run closer than you think. Number 2, Sweetwater and Widow Creek. That kind of stopped breath opens the story behind the first 2 rivers on tonight's list. Sweetwater, Tennessee sits above one of the largest known underground lakes in the country, a cavern system locals still call the Lost Sea. Commercial tours run boats across the lit section daily. Fewer than a third of visitors ever hear about the mine surveyor who mapped its edges back in 1931. His name was Everett Coyle, hired by a zinc company to chart drainage before blasting a new shaft. Coyle's field journal, held now in a regional archive, describes water moving against the current he'd just measured an hour earlier. Direction reversed twice in one afternoon, with no rainfall, no tide, nothing upstream to explain it. He wrote 3 pages about that reversal. Then he stopped writing about the cave at all. His later reports mentioned drainage totals and nothing else, as though the subject had been sealed off inside his own notebook. Grab water like that under a microscope, and it should behave. It didn't. 90 miles east, near the Tennessee-Virginia line, a smaller system called Widow Creek Cave tells a stranger version of the same story. Caver Marissa Holt has surveyed the passage for 11 years, logging depth and airflow for a university research team. Something in her most recent notes reads almost identical to Coyle's, word for word in spirit if not in ink. Cold air rises from a side channel every October, always the same week, always gone by November 1st. Holt calls it seasonal venting. Off camera, she admits the timing bothers her more than she lets the university report show. Neither surveyor found a mechanical cause. Neither one stopped working near the water. But both of them, 60 years apart, drew the exact same line on their maps and wrote the exact same phrase beside it. Access restricted pending further study. That study was never scheduled. Not in 1931. Not in the decade since Holt flagged it again. 2 rivers down. And already the surveyors themselves seem more careful with their words than the water they're describing. Number 3, Puit and Kie rivers. Careful with their words is exactly how the Puit family described a river nobody outside their hollow ever got to see. The Puits ran a coal operation in McDowell County, West Virginia, from 1904 until the mine closed for good in 1958. Beneath their 3rd shaft ran a stream miners nicknamed the Vein, cold enough to numb a bare hand in seconds, even in August. Company payroll records confirm regular maintenance crews assigned to that section for over 3 decades. Then, in 1951, all maintenance stopped. No incident report survives. No inspection notes account for the decision. What does survive is a single letter from Harlan Puit to his brother, discovered decades later in a box of family papers, instructing him to brick the entrance and never mention the vein to the grandchildren. He gave no reason. His brother followed the instruction anyway, the same week the letter arrived. Quick pause. If a family sealing off part of its own mine and refusing to explain it to its own children sounds like exactly the kind of thread worth pulling, that's this channel in one sentence. Hit subscribe if you want the next thread pulled with you. South of McDowell, in Wise County, Virginia, a similar quiet surrounds a spring the Kie family once used to cool milk before refrigeration reached the hollow. Neighbors called it Kie Spring for generations. Sometime around 1962, the family fenced it off entirely, posting a hand-painted sign that read, "Simply stay out, please." Grandchildren interviewed decades later for a local oral history project remember being told the water there ran too cold to touch. Nothing more specific than that. One granddaughter, now in her 70s, still remembers her grandfather standing at that fence line every evening at dusk, watching the water rather than working it. She never asked why. He never offered a reason. Two more rivers, two families that chose silence over answers, and neither one left behind so much as a rumor of what actually happened at the water's edge. What the Puits and the Kies never told their own blood, the next two rivers give away, even less to anyone at all. Number 4. Ashworth and Whitfield. What the water's edge kept from the Puits and the Kies. Geologist Ruth Ashworth spent 4 years trying to pull back into the open. Ashworth mapped karst systems across the Cumberland Plateau for the Kentucky Geological Survey between 1988 and 1992, and two rivers on her final survey map still carry a note in her own handwriting that reads simply "anomalous. Verify." Nobody ever did. The fifth river runs beneath Harlan County, Kentucky, through a passage local cavers call Anders Hollow after the ridge above it. Ashworth measured its water temperature every visit for 3 consecutive years, a steady 52 degrees each time, textbook consistent for that depth. Then, on a single visit in October of 1990, her thermometer read 68 degrees at the exact same marked point. She checked the instrument twice. She checked it against a second thermometer she'd brought as backup. Both agreed. Within a week, the reading dropped back to 52 and stayed there for the rest of her survey. Ashworth wrote 68 degrees into her field notes and underlined it 3 times. She wasn't alone in what she found. 40 miles south, near the Tennessee border, retired forest ranger Colin Whitfield patrolled a ridge containing the 6th River for over 2 decades. Whitfield had never met Ashworth and never read her research. In a 2019 interview recorded for a county archive, he described a stream that reverses direction every year within days of the same October week, flowing uphill against gravity for roughly 72 hours before correcting itself. He kept his own log for a decade, unprompted, just to be sure he wasn't imagining it. He wasn't. 2 witnesses, 2 counties, 2 decades apart, with no contact between them and no shared source for either claim. One measured a temperature spike that shouldn't exist in stable bedrock. The other watched water climb a slope it had no business climbing, on a calendar so consistent he could nearly set a clock by it. Neither explanation involves flooding, mining runoff, or seasonal snowmelt, the usual answers geologists reach for first. Ashworth's map still carries that handwritten note. Whitfield's field log still sits in a county archive nobody has requested since he donated it. Together, they're the closest this list comes to proof. And what comes next ties every one of these rivers back to a single ridge. Number 5. Sable Run and the Final River. A single ridge connects every river on this list back to one place. Black Fork Ridge, straddling the Kentucky-Virginia line above both Anders Hollow and Whitfield's patrol route. The 7th River runs directly beneath it, and unlike the others, this one has a name on record, Sable Run, though almost nobody who lives nearby uses it. Local access to Sable Run closed in 1994 after a caving accident that left one man, David Merck, trapped for 19 hours in a side passage 40 feet below the entrance. Rescue crews reached him alive. What Merck told them afterward never made it into the formal incident report, according to 2 rescuers interviewed years later for a regional caving newsletter. He recalled the walls narrowing around him without moving, as though the passage itself had grown smaller while he sat still, waiting for help. Picture his exact position for a second. flashlight dimming. Back against cold stone, air tasting thinner with every breath he counted. Merck later told a friend the space felt like it was deciding whether to let him out. He never went caving again after that night. The eighth and final river sits just below the ridge's northern face. In a passage so narrow, only 3 documented survey teams have ever entered it since 1965. Each team reported the same detail independently. Total silence, no dripping water, no airflow, nothing but their own breathing amplified back at them from the rock. One 2003 survey member put it simply, standing inside a held breath. Held breath. That's the phrase that keeps surfacing across 60 years and 8 separate rivers, from Coyle's notebook to Merck's own words to a survey team that had never heard of either man. Air that pulses, then stops. Water that reverses, then corrects itself. Families and scientists and survivors. None of them connected, all reaching for the same image without ever comparing notes. 8 rivers, one ridge holding all of them together underground, and not a single person who stood beside that water has ever fully explained what they felt there. What connects them isn't a flood record or a company file. It's a feeling repeated by strangers, decade after decade, in the exact same words. 8 rivers, one ridge, and a phrase strangers keep repeating without ever meeting each other. Somewhere on that same ridge, locals mention a 9th river they won't name out loud. We haven't found it yet. Comment which of these 8 you'd walk into first, and we'll go looking for the 9th.